Well, hello everybody. It's 12 o'clock exactly, and I was brought up to never punish the punctual, so we're going to start right now. My name is Wesley Fredericks. I have the privilege of leading the team here at Red and Yellow, and our purpose at Red and Yellow is to change the world through education, and we do that through our full-time school where we offer various programs and qualifications. We also do it through our online school where we offer online short courses, and then executive training, which we offer as well. Our purpose, as I said, is to change the world through education. And one of the ways that we also do that is through providing free learning in things like this lunchtime lecture. And for those of you who were here last week, you'll know that this is part 2 of our series in search engine optimization. Last week, we had Andre van Kets, who is the co-founder and director of Discovery Group Africa, talk us through some of the SEO fundamentals. He was also joined by his partner, Rick Harrington, who's actually the marketing director at Discover Africa Group, apologies. And so this week, we've got lots in store. Andre and Rick will be co-presenting. I do want to encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. We want to make this quite an interactive session. I'm sure there's going to be lots of banter as we go through it, but let's have fun while we learn. So I'm going to ask Andre and Rick to put on their screens. How's it, Rick? How's it, Andre? Good to have you guys back again.
Yeah, likewise.
Cool. So we're a minute into it. I'm going to hand straight over to you guys. Let's have some fun.
Great to be here again. We rushed through 95 slides last week covering these 8 fundamentals of getting your site ready to rank. It was like a bullet train. I was drilled at the end. But today we're going to take a different tack. We're not going to poke fun at Red and Yellow and their little spots missing on their site. We're going to look at something we've just launched this week. In fact, on Monday, we're really stoked in the tourism industry that we can travel again and we can help people travel. So Rick and I frantically last week put together a little site called Deals to Discover. It's not perfect. We rushed it out the door, but we've done our best to SEO it. And we're going to critique it today with you on these 8 criteria. In fact, we're probably only going to have time today for the first 4. So we're going to do that shortly. We're going to have the site open live. We're going to open our tools. We're going to show you how we, using WordPress in this case, actually kind of whip the site out. And we still got some work to do. And we're going to kind of discover that as we go today. So without further ado, right, last week, first fundamental point is getting your site ready to rank is choosing the correct CMS. So here's the site I mentioned, a quick screenshot. We'll jump over there. And sorry, this is the agenda I've run through. So first steps first, we decided to launch the site not on a brand new domain, but rather on our existing site, discoverafrica.com/deals. Rick, why did we do this?
Okay, so generally, legacy, Google looks at a website and looks at the legacy of a domain and says, okay, so this domain is, our discoverafrica.com domain is 15 years old. So it just gives Google a good indicator that this is a well-established business, and therefore there's more trust, and it'll impact rankings better in the end. If you've got a brand new domain, you haven't built any links, you haven't built any trust towards that domain, it's going to take a while.
Okay. Then you asked me earlier, why did we choose WordPress? Quite simply, it's cheap. In fact, it's free. You pay for a few plugins. We know how to use it. Our team that's going to be stocking all the deals on an ongoing basis know how to use it. And it can do all the SEO stuff. So, it was a no-brainer to sort of jump into WordPress land. The first thing we did after launching was make sure the site is fully indexable. There's a little tick box that you got to make sure you uncheck or you check when you launch a new site in WordPress. And the way you also double check, if you view source, you look for something here called meter. What is it, Rick? It's meter index.
Meter index, which is no index generally. Just search for no index.
Robots, there we go. So by default, WordPress will launch with it unindexable. You got to make sure that it does get indexed. So you uncheck that box. Now Googlebot can follow all these links and add it to the index.
It's really always valuable to just do a view page source and do a no index search at all times. You just want to make sure that no index doesn't exist on your page.
Okay, good. That doesn't live there. Awesome. So Google can see our site. We also loaded a sitemap on. So as you can see here, all you do is you go to URL/sitemap. And then these are all the sitemaps that WordPress automatically puts out. Or was it Yoast Plugin, Rick? I think it was the Yoast Plugin that generates these sitemaps for us.
It's Yoast, yeah. There you go,
Okay.
generated by Yoast on the top.
So basically, this Google bot goes to and trawls all these pages and starts adding them into the site. So, we built the site, we make sure Google can find it. We help it as much as possible to find every single page on the site. And then, we'll start appearing in the search engines. Like I mentioned, we use the Yoast plugin. Gives us nice granular control, and it also adds some funky things like OG tags or open graph tags. So I don't know if you know, when you search on social media or you send someone a WhatsApp link, you kind of get that little thumbnail and a short description. Without these OG tags, that stuff you can't control. Google just picks any old picture you want, but with Yoast, you're able to granularly choose which image you want there and you really stipulate what text you want there. So it's good not just for SEO, but also for UX. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. We chose the Astra theme because it's a lightweight, very light code footprint. It plays nicely with WooCommerce, which is what we've used for delivering our e-commerce platform. And then we added sort of 5 or 10 other plugins, not too many. We didn't want to sort of bloat the site, just for minimal features. As it is, I think we could probably peel 2 or 3 of those off still, Rick. We haven't quite done that review, but not too bad. One thing I did do, and I think a lot of us who not as maybe technically strong as sort of Rick and I have done in the experience we have, is we use page builders to drag and drop content onto the site. For people that aren't comfortable with HTML, it's a nice way to make your site fancy and look pretty, but it also slows the site right down. So we opted not to use Elementor or one of those page builders, and we've kept our site speed around about the 48 mark, which isn't bad. I'd like to take it to 50 or 60, Rick, but we've got a little bit of work to do there. Last thing, we do have HTTPS, but I want to point something out, which I discovered a bit earlier. Although the site is secure, you can see that with this little icon. I know that if I take the S away from here, Rick, it is not redirecting at the moment. It's telling us that it's not secure. So that's fairly straightforward. We just add one line of code to our htaccess file, and voila, we no longer have this sort of potential for people discovering the unsecure version.
Generally, if you're building a website off the bat and you set everything to HTTPS, that's fine. Because Google is only looking for the links coming in. So if you're only linking to HTTPS, Google will only index HTTPS. But it's always safer to just do a global wildcard redirect to your preferred, which is either HTTPS, dub, or HTTPS root. So no dub. So just always better to just make sure it's intact.
Yeah. Then Rick, something I picked up a little oversight on our side. If we go to discoverafrica.com/robots.txt, you can explain in a second what that is. We're not rendering that page properly. This is another directive for Google that, maybe it's because I've got it on HTTP.
And you need to maybe just go to deals first.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But I don't think your robots.txt file will show. It's not something that will show per se. But anyway, that's...
All right. Anyway, it's another thing you've got to have in place. Maybe just explain what that is.
Okay, so your robots.txt file, essentially Google is a bot. So it's doing a crawl of your website. So your robots.txt file explains to all of the bots how you want your website to crawled. So you can basically say that there's certain files that you don't want Google to see, or other bots to see, or other search engines to see, and certain files you want them to see. So it gives you quite a lot of functionality that you can direct the bots into the right pages. And for example, let's say you've got a page that's broken and you want to redirect to the right page, you'll also do that in your, that's in your htaccess, not your robots. But it just gives you a lot of access in terms of how Google crawls your site.
Yeah.
Okay. Andre, I see Jillian's got a question here. Can you recommend pros and cons for WordPress versus Wix versus Squarespace, specifically for SEO? So I just think everyone always asks the Wix question and Squarespace question because it's so simple to get websites up. You can kind of think of it like when I've got something that's super simple and super easy to get up, there's generally going to be cons to that. The more difficult it is to get a website up, the more intricacies involved. It means that you can get a faster website, you can get a lighter website, you can get a better SEO'd website. Something like Wix and Squarespace is quick, and it's quick for a reason, because you're not doing all of this optimization. It's drag and drop builders. So it's adding more weight to your page. I generally build in Drupal, which is far more complex than WordPress, Wix, or Squarespace, but it gives you a lot more scalability, but far more difficult to build in. So it's like building a brochure website. It's fine if you're building a brochure website with Wix or Squarespace, but you can't expect to scale that to anything more than that.
I think it'll do, Rick, all those platforms do the bare minimum, but if you want to really get advanced, and if you're like an e-commerce store, you want to get, you're going to need more tools, and you're going to need to be able to sort of utilize them. So it's not terrible, but it's there. And then just to give you guys a timeline on how fast it takes Google to crawl a site. If it was a brand new domain, we wouldn't have these numbers, but because we loaded on a long-standing website, yesterday after launch, no pages. On Monday. On Tuesday, we had 7 pages indexed. 9 o'clock this morning, it was 24 pages indexed by Googlebot. And to determine how many pages, I'm seeing 17 now. That's interesting. So this also fluctuates. You just type in the word site in front of your URL, search that in Google, and you'll know exactly how many pages Google has.
You've probably got 17 results because you put the www and HTTPS in.
Maybe.
And because we don't have a redirect in place, Google is seeing the HTTP and HTTPS.
26 results. So every hour or two, Google's finding more pages going, and you can see they literally will list all the pages on our site. All right, I think back to the flow. That kind of covers our base CMS setup to make sure we're not blocking Google altogether. We've done some of our foundational stuff like the secure, the sitemap, etc. Let's look now at keywords and how we went about building up the keyword focus for the site. I'll be honest, we didn't do the best job, having sort of just prepared some of these slides, but the way we went about was, and we normally do, is we have a quick brainstorm session. If you're working with a client, they'll chat to you and ask you, what are your product names? What's your brand name? What are your competitors using? That kind of stuff. And then what we'll also do is you'll use Google search itself. So you might type something like South Africa travel into the bar if it's, our context. Now I use the word, then I just start typing and I think, what's the first D that comes up? I see, deals comes up. That's not bad. Deals comes up before discounts. Then, all right, maybe South Africa travel specials. So without having to use any hardcore tools, you can actually get an idea of the keyword space just from using the Google bar. I'm not going to give any volumes, search data, quantitative stuff, but it just gives you an idea of how good these keywords are. I mean, if I went South Africa, COVID, I'm not seeing COVID travel coming in, tests, travel rules. I don't think I should be trying to sell on the word COVID here. This is already just telling me people aren't searching. Then another tool we use early on is Google Trends. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it shows the trend data of search terms over time. It gets quite interesting. Here I've just used an arbitrary word, COVID travel. Again, I thought we'd be focused on post-COVID travel keywords. You can see obviously it's grown over the last 3 or 4 months, but this is in the USA. The tool is super powerful. You can switch to another locale and see how much fewer search terms, only 50 a month or 50 a day, it would seem. But the beauty is you can start comparing. You can go, you can do all sorts of things. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but go and use Google Trends just to validate your ideas. That brainstorm session you had, this will quickly tell you if you're barking up the wrong tree or not. Any comments on this, Rick?
No comments there. I've got a question here from Ben.
Cool.
Can you talk to the Nuxt.js library and Strappy? Ben, to be perfectly honest, we haven't dealt too much with that. Strappy is a headless CMS as far as I know. Nuxt is Angular, if I'm not mistaken. We try to generally stay away from Angular websites because it's that single page load on a single URL. You kind of want to make sure that every single piece of content has a unique URL. But headless is definitely the route to go, and that is the direction we're also moving into from a CMS perspective.
What I'll add in there is that for most one-page sites, it creates a very fluid and wonderful user experience. And there are ways of doing those in such a way that Googlebot can follow the JavaScript and that complex code to interpret those instant page loads as distinct content and index them directly. But if you just do one tiny bit of code wrong, and I've seen this on an amazing travel site, safaris.com was running the most beautiful site, slickest experience. They had great content. The guy Anton and his team were producing phenomenal stuff. You do a site command on Safaris, this is about a year ago, there was 9 pages that Google knew of. And I knew personally for a fact that they had 900 pages on that site. So they put all this work into a beautiful experience, phenomenal content and imagery, and it was like it was gated. So proceed with caution in that sort of realm. But it is possible, and when you get it right, you will reap both the SEO and UX rewards. So yeah, it's definitely something.
It is a very advanced implementation, though. It is something that we're only looking at now, and I mean, we should have looked at it earlier, but it's not something that every Tom, Dick, and Harry can jump on board and implement, get right at the end of the day.
Okay, I'm going to smooch along here. Rick, we're looking at keyword research. So, that was our sort of ideation phase. Next, you use a few tools. Now, the free one a lot of people know of is Google Ads Keyword Planner. I'm hoping these pages are going to refresh for me with the video stream. Let's see. Oh, we're fighting the video stream, I think, yeah. I don't think that's going to come. Then SEMrush is another tool that we use for researching keywords. I did touch on this last week, but let's see how this tool comes down. All right, so let's just use sort of the main premise keyword of our homepage is South Africa travel deals. We're going to chuck that in to keyword tool. We're going to change the context from US to South Africa and search. So what this tool is going to do, it's going to trawl through its database of pages and keywords and everything that anyone's ever searched on the web ever before. And it's going to make recommendations of this for this particular keyword I've entered and other similar keywords. So now we can say, well, maybe deals isn't the right word. Maybe we should be using specials or discounts. So let's just quickly analyze this data set and then we can move on. So number 1 on the list was Black Friday Travel Deals 2019. Now that keyword I could use on the site, but it's not going to be that relevant. I'm pretty sure looking at the trend graph, it's only going to come into play in November. Travel Deals South Africa. That's, not 590, but 140. So it's over per month, every month of the year, we're going to get roughly a quarter of what happened in November if we target this keyword. Now there's a subtle difference, South Africa travel deals versus travel deals South Africa. The sequence of those words matters a little bit, but probably not too much. Groupon travel deals. There's a little brand term that maybe we could poach, Rick, and somehow weave into our site. Gets a bit more granular. Travel deals to Mauritius from South Africa. Now, I don't have a Mauritius package on the site just yet. We're not allowed to fly there. But as soon as we do, we're going to use these kinds of patterns of text to ensure that our product pages follow that same natural language. Travel deals to Kruger, travel deals to Cape Town is probably the kind of keywords I'm going to start thinking about and sort of extrapolating into my site if I'm not there at this stage. Best travel deals, just by adding the word best, is another opportunity, but it only adds 10 more compared to the 140 that come in on this main term. I think that's enough of a sort of insight into how these tools work. You can filter by country, by all sorts of different interesting keywords. But this is sort of the value of keyword research. You're no longer flying in the dark or using your intuition. We're using hard data to decide what to put on these pages, whether it's the heading or the next heading or the body copy here along the bottom. And I think, Rick, that's maybe wait, I think there was one more tool we wanted to show everyone, which is keywords everywhere. This one you pointed out. Maybe just chat us through what we're seeing on screen here.
Okay, so just keywords everywhere is just for me a cheaper version of SEMrush. SEMrush is super expensive. So if you want to get something that's nice and cheap, keywords everywhere is a solution for you. All that it really does is it gives you the search volume for all your keywords. So you can very quickly see, like travel deals, for example, there it's got 330 monthly searches. Now, depending on what Andre set that on, it could be for South Africa only, it could be for the US, it could be global. It's a little Chrome extension that you can add on, so it's a real nice solution. And it's not
bottom right corner, Rick. What's the stuff in the bottom right corner and the trend graph?
Yeah, so it's just giving you some trends around searches. Oh, so there you go. It's Travel Deals ZA. So it's showing you the trends in terms of search volume for that. And then at the bottom, it's just related terms. So holiday packages to Mauritius, like Andre said, is something that gets searched a lot in South Africa. We obviously like Mauritius. Travel starts a big search, holiday packages in Durban. So there you go. So my recommendation here is that generally, whenever you build your website or whenever you start doing SEO, then take each page and try to, take all of your keywords and split them up into pockets of 3 related terms. And then take those 3 terms and try and match them to a specific page. If you're going to try to do more than that, you're going to dilute your keyword density and you're just going to lose out. Okay, so take 3 keywords and try and get those three related keywords to be present on a single page.
So Rick, in this case, our homepage, we've opted for South Africa travel deals. You're saying we could probably chuck in discounts, specials.
Exactly. So South Africa travel deals.
Travel Start or Groupon or something like that, but maybe that's a bit too cheeky.
Yeah, my 3 keywords here would be South Africa travel deals, South Africa travel specials, South Africa travel discounts. And those 3, I try to make sure that I've got enough body copy, I've got enough H tags, everything running through the site to make sure that that is present, which we haven't done, to be perfectly honest.
I'm just going to do I'm jumping ahead of the game here, but how many times the word deal appears on this homepage? 13. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Travel deals, verbatim, 4 times. South Africa travel deals, twice. The main heading, the secondary heading, but nowhere else in this body copy do we use that phrase exactly. I think that's already a weak point. But I'm kind of jumping the gun here. Maybe we should just, because really what I've started doing is looking at this on-page SEO. Those who joined us last week will remember this slide. I kind of returned to it a few times, where it points out 14 or 15 things that every page on the site really should have. So Rick, I'm going to scoot over to the site and you run down the checklist and I'll see if I can point out all of these things in practice to everyone.
Okay. Sorry, you want me to go through the site or are you going to go through the site?
I'll go through the site. You just read out the list 1 to 14 if you have it open there.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. Just have a look here. Okay, so first of all is the proper URL formatting.
Okay, we called it /deals. I guess we could have called it South-Africa-travel-deals if we wanted to get more keyword heavy, but yeah, I mean, that would have been quite hard to promote then in the real world, right?
Yes, you also don't want to over-optimize your URL. Google doesn't like that. So you kind of want to make it as concise as possible. The shorter the URL, the better for Google.
But let's check something out here. If I hop onto our Safari page, we have structured these deeper pages to try and utilize, I think, a little bit more. We really are fighting this streaming video to get this page to load. There we go. If we look at this URL, I don't know if everyone can see it, but it's deals/travel/Safari. But now literally we've got this exact primary keyword for this deeper page reflected in our URL. If you go to family, it's going to be deals/travel/family and deals/travel/road trip. So you can see how we've created a formula or URL schema that'll reinforce the keywords as you move from page to page. What's next on the list, Eric?
It's always important just to kind of keep it in mind when you're doing these things. You know, make sure your sub pages are ranking for what you're looking to rank for. Okay, relevant keyword-rich title.
Okay, I think that's reasonable here. We're using it there at the very top, and again here and in the breadcrumbs.
Okay, then a schema markup. I don't think we've got any schema markup, do we?
Let's just see. I think that includes, I would say we've got the OG tags.
No, you're talking meta, not schema.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so we've got the meta stuff in. I don't think we've got schema. Do you want to quickly run through what schema means?
No, there we go. You've got the schema there. There's at least an organizational schema. Okay, so schema is additional markup that you can add to your pages, which, let's say, for example, you've got an article that you want to tell Google more about without showing it on the front page. You can add additional schema data. It's just to provide more rich data for Google to be able to understand what your page is about.
Here's a good example, Rick. I think we often see when we search in the results that you get kind of a Q&A box right at the top, like how to, I don't know, how to do SEO. And you don't just get regular results, you get that Q&A special results. So there's schema you can add to your site to wrap around some of your content. It's HTML tags, and that tells Google, hey, this is a question and here is the answer. So when someone asks this question, bump this one to the top of the results. And there's schema for locations, for pricing, for reviews and star ratings, that kind of thing.
Yes.
It's when you get a more enhanced snippet in the results, like you can see here, that schema will create those things with little stars and prices and all that.
Yeah, reviews, articles, products. There are thousands of schemas. It's worthwhile looking into, and generally with your CMSs, there are schema plugins that you can run. Just always be careful with plugins that it doesn't bloat your site, okay, and makes it slow.
Okay, let's fire up a couple more of the on-site requirements. Have we?
Yeah, let's look at breadcrumbs. Do we have breadcrumbs in place?
Yep, breadcrumbs here, which takes you from the home page to the more granular page, and if you go deeper, you get even more.
Okay, internal site search, we've got that running. And then optimized headings, H1 to H6. We kind of discussed that last week, Andre.
Yeah, and I think this main one here is an H1 if I view source. And then as you go down the page, it'll use more granular sections as H2s. I think these are H2s if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So we're using headings adequately, I think.
Yeah, perfect. Keywords in the main content. We just did a kind of a search there.
Yeah, what I can say is that I know we haven't had time yet, but the homepage, we put a couple of hundred words at the bottom of that page. These sub pages, you know, the filtered Safari, Beach, etc. We don't have any content. I've just got this little catchphrase. So we need to write how many words? 300, 500, 3,000 words on these pages?
That's always a bit of a debate. Look, you should generally not launch a page with anything under 300 to 400 words on it, but you can go long form as well. Just be super careful. Google, as Andre always says, that Google only hires linguistic specialists, so don't write waffle. Don't just write for writing's sake. Make sure that you're always trying to educate your user and give them the right information. If you can write 10,000 words and educate them and they love it and the page is quick, fantastic. But don't just write waffle. Otherwise, it's just going to hurt you at the end of the day.
Yeah. And then one other thing, which is often sort of the debate is, right, we know we need some content on our homepage. I at least bothered to do a one-pager here. In fact, what I did is I was so lazy, I just took the press release we wrote and then chucked it in here and tweaked it. But now the question is, this content lives quite low down on the page. I think one of the items on the list is above the fold. So we would score better in SEO if we had that copy running here and then the products lower down. But the negative impact of the user experience of sort of hiding your core products where you want the users to go too far down is the trade-off.
I think it's super important. Andre, it's super important that everyone understands that you need to try and make it a good experience and a proper experience for your user. So don't try and hide things. Don't try and put things in weird places. Make it a good experience for your user. Like, if they land on that page, what are they looking for? And the more you can do that, it'll naturally come into play. Your keywords will be there. Your H1s will be there. Your H tags will be there. The content length will be right. So if you're just going to create pages for pages' sake, and you're just going to throw in content for content's sake, you're going to get hurt. Just make sure that you're doing the right thing for your reader.
Yeah, cool. What else on the list there are we doing right or wrong, Rick?
Okay, we've got multimedia. So making sure that you've got the right multimedia in place, which we've done. Making sure those images are the right size is super important. Don't just throw 2,000 pixel images on there.
And here, Rick,
it's going to kill your website.
I think we haven't taken the time to smash these images down. When I open image in new tab, it's kind of a big one for that tiny thumbnail.
Yes, exactly. So that's a big no-no. Like, you don't want to do that. That image is what, 200 by 300, or 300 by 200. You don't need an image this size.
It only needs to be like something this size, call it 400 pixels wide. Instead, I've got a 2,000 pixel wide image. Imagine this on a mobile phone. You're putting down you're putting on 5 massive images. It's going to be a slow experience for the user. So we need to just run a little smasher through this and shrink all those files down. All right. But it's kind of so easy to overlook, but actually so easy to fix.
Yeah. So there's a couple more here, and I think they're pretty straightforward. Social share buttons. Guys, social share buttons is really just a user experience thing. Social links don't mean anything. It's called social in SEO is a signal. It's not a link indicator. It's not a trust indicator for Google. So it's just a signal. Important to remember. We've got mobile friendliness, Andre. Very important.
This one's down quite nicely. In fact, I chose that Astra theme because it's very mobile friendly. That's where we started. Yeah.
And then page speed, of course, which we've discussed already, I think.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that's kind of the checklist. We didn't do too bad there, Rick. I think, and that last point on social sharing, because we're going to get to links next week, not really in detail this week, but you might get your article shared or your website or link shared far and wide, which is great, but it's not going to be a direct ranking factor. Sharing socially is great because it might land on the desk or in front of someone that has influence on a website. And if your content is link worthy, it becomes so it's a conduit to success. It's not the thing of success. So that makes some kind of sense. Okay, let's try jump through content in 5 minutes or so, and then we've got time for questions. So last week I spoke about the 4 main things of content is quantity, and that's how much you have on your site and individual pages. Quality, how good it is and relevant and trustworthy in a sense. The relevance of that content, and velocity. So just as a quick sort of self-assessment, we know exactly how many pages are on the site. We launched with about 20 deals, about a dozen categories, 9 provinces, and the homepage. So 30, 40 pages. It's not a massive site. All our competitors, TravelStart, Groupon, those guys have got thousands of pages. So we're up against quite a challenge. We know, though, that everything we've produced is getting indexed very quickly from Google. We've got our sitemap on, our site command is working. The homepage and category pages are well structured. We're passing all our sort of on-page things. We only added content to the homepage. We need to add content to those category pages. And then one thing I want to point out on our product pages. So here we're looking at this sort of motorhome special. Let me hop back to one of our nice lodge specials. Here we go. Beautiful experience we're offering there, 35% off. These are obviously all the T's and C's. And now this piece of copy, I'm not sure whether our travel team copied and pasted it off of Africa on Foot's website, just sort of verbatim, or whether we rewrote it nice and beautifully and carefully. But it's a little bit of a flag, and maybe just mention the kind of caution around duplicate content for everyone, Rick.
So basically Google is very good at picking up duplicate content. So you can very quickly see if it's just been verbatim copied and pasted from another site. You always want to try and write original content. You can think about, Andre used the example of the librarian last week. So if you put your book into the library second, and Google already knows that there's a book with this exact copy somewhere else, they're not going to recommend your book. They'll just grab the original book that you got it from. So it's the same principle here. Always make sure that whatever you do, it's original, and then Google will rank you instead of someone else. You can, of course, grab a lot of things and tweak and change as you can, but just be very careful. Duplicate content is an issue.
Yeah, and even assembly of content, like you say, tweaking is one thing, but here we are, we're adding a bit of difference here. We're putting in our distinct terms and conditions and includes and linking to COVID health requirements and blah, blah, blah. So even if we did grab these 200 words straight off their website, when it gets assembled with a whole bunch of other stuff, it might seem distinct enough. I'm not saying we're okay here. The brief to our team is definitely going to be, don't just copy and paste. And you guys should also do the same wherever you're in that kind of instance. So that sort of relates to quality. And then the EAT, expertise, authority, and trust definitely comes into play. We haven't thrown any ads. There's no banners. There's no dark patterns. I think the worst we've done is this sort of subscribe thing, which is fairly innocuous at the bottom, and then an exit intent pop-up. So if you leave, we still want to say, hey, why don't you subscribe to get daily notifications? But if we had that pop-up waiting in the middle of the screen before you've even consumed anything on the site, Google might see that as a slightly less trustworthy signal and might downward score you. So, this is kind of all the things you factor in. Although it wasn't SEO per se, it's user experience that drives SEO. And then lastly, velocity, which is obviously speed related, but velocity is not just about speed, it's about the change of things over time. So at a content level, we've got those 30 odd pages on the site. We intend and we are adding new deals every day to the site. So it's not just that there's more product. Google sees that this is a living, breathing site, that over 2 or 3 weeks, every day there's 4 or 5 new things. Maybe we add a new category. Maybe we add Botswana and there's a whole new section to the site. If we really do that at a consistent pace with a modest number of links and pass all the other checkboxes, we can indeed compete against the massive travel starts and those other big booking platforms, Flight Center, with our humble little startup, luckily based on a site with longevity. But I think what I'm getting at is this is a recipe. And if you just do, most of the things right fairly well, and some you do really well, you can actually fight against those sort of bigger giants out there.
So sorry, Andre, I just want to quickly jump in with regards to the velocity stuff. So that's the reason why your aggregators generally do really well. So you can think of Indeed for jobs or Amazon for products or Gumtree. Price check. They do really well because they've got fresh products coming in every single day. So every day Google has to index them and get new content. If your page is static and it's been static for 10 years, Google knows that you're obviously not adding much value, or you're not busy being active. So it is a strong indicator.
Yeah, cool. Look, we've been going for 35 minutes here, and we're kind of halfway. Sorry.
Just before we get to the experiments, I think there's a couple of questions that we can quickly run through, just on the content stuff, and then jump into the experiment, because I think the experiment's really cool and worthwhile waiting for. So Karabo asked, how do I determine if a heading is an H2 or H4, for example? How do I decide on what to be H2 versus H6? Andre, you can answer that one, I think.
Sure thing. The sequence, the H1 through to H6 is a hierarchy of importance. Just like when you're reading a textbook, you get the big heading and then the second big heading and the third big heading. That's the intention of those heading tags. And the best way to do it is sort of to mimic what makes logical sense. So you use the H1 first, and then you might have, if you've got 2 big subheadings, you use the H2s for those. And then inside of that, if you've got subheadings, then you'll use H3 and then H4, 5, 6, and so on. And it's not a hard and fast rule, but the recommendation is that you do go from H1 down to H6. You don't go H1, H6, H2, H4, it just gets a bit messy. Google wants to see structure in your content, And if it makes sense, they'll reward you for that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Kieran has asked, you're showing SEO on the front of your website. So for example, where you can't use all the top three keywords on your website, could you add the other two top keywords into the back end? So in other words, what's the best way to make both types of SEO work together? I think I can answer that one. There is no such thing as a back end. It's a common misconception. I don't mean to be funny about it. The thing is, what you're seeing as a website is not what Google is seeing. Andre, if you could just view page source there.
Yeah.
Okay. Just show them how to do page source.
Oh yeah, right. Sorry, we just on it. You just right click anywhere on the page.
Sorry, I should have removed that. Apologies, Andre. Okay, so you right click on your page and you say view source. Okay, so this is what Google sees. This is what they don't see, the pretty pictures and they don't see the pretty videos. They see this. So whatever you're doing, you need to make sure that if you're going to try and rank for a specific keyword, you have to have it in this copy. And it needs to be prominent. It needs to be in the right tags. So just putting it into, meta keywords, which Google don't even look at anymore, you have to make sure that it's present if you want to rank for it. Karen, I hope that answers your question. Okay, I think there are Jennifer Kamalo has asked, will we be able to share this document with everyone, Andre? I think we can.
Yeah, we can do something like that. No worries. Yeah. We'll ask Nikki to send it out. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's great. I think then let's get onto the experiments and then we can just answer the last 5 or 6 questions that we've got.
Okay, great. So just to kind of, we've covered the first 4 of those 8 fundamentals. And next week, we're going to look at links and link building, which is, we're going to look at speed and how we get that fast speed. We're going to look at UX and sort of in a bit more detail, and a lot of the Google tools that are free for us to use, and try have a little bit more time for even more Q&A. Maybe look at someone else's website and give some pointers. But to get that sort of link, to make something quite interesting out of the link discussion, this website, or this page we've launched, the site we've launched under Discover Africa /deals, currently has no backlinks. We launched this on Monday. We are doing PR and we're doing stuff to try and get more links in, and we're doing that work. But we'd love to see what impact a chunk of links could have on the site's rankings in a very short period. So I don't know how many people on the call today. If there was 50 or 100 people, probably half of you have got some kind of influence on a website, whether it's your company site, your personal blog, whatever it is. So probably half of you've got the ability to add a link and point to this deals platform if you've got the willingness, if you think it's relevant and of value to people. Maybe half of those people will be like, oh, I'll actually bother to do it, or I'll ask my mate who's the web developer to do it, or my colleague. So if there is 50 people or 100 people that watch this, maybe we can get down to 20 or 30 links pointing to this new deals platform. And I'd love to see what impact that has on rankings and the performance of the site. And I'd love to show everyone. I think Rick and you and I know that even 20 links can move the needle. It depends on the quality, the relevance, and all that stuff. But I'd love to actually show people next week this exact same screenshot from SEMrush, and to see how we score and qualify and value links. Because it is still one of the most foundational aspects of getting sites to rank, along with all the rest of the things. But this is where, if you do everything else perfectly and you build 0 links, it's like the most amazing restaurant or the best movie ever made, but no one talks about it. No one points to it. No one recommends it. So I'm old school this year. I always believe links are so valuable. They are valuable. It's still a big driver of Google's algo. Without it, it's going to be very hard to perform. And that's why next week we're going to focus on that. And I'm really asking all of you to let me know. And Rick, I think actually what we discussed, and I hope we're not setting ourselves up for disaster here, but for everyone that does build a link to our site, please let us know. And Rick and I will do a free audit of your website, a half-an-hour conversation, kind of like this, where we just talk you through your site, give you some pointers, no strings attached, just to help each of you benefit as much as possible. It's the least we could do if you're able to assist us to create exposure and build value to this new platform of ours.
Andre, I'm sure I said 15 minutes, but okay. So there goes my week.
Well, let's see how much comes through. Yeah, Wesley, I don't know if you want to fire any questions our way. You've been listening very patiently.
No, it's good. I actually do have some banging happening in the background here. That's why I'm trying to keep my sound off. Got some construction work, so I didn't want to disturb you guys too much. But there are a couple of questions. We're nearly out of time, so let's see if we can maybe do 2 or 3. From Tel, I think this one came in a lot earlier. Hi, Rick. I also work with a Drupal CMS. My client requires a particular page to be SEO crawlable on the existing site. What should my starting point be in determining what it will take to rewrite that page?
Well, I would just make sure that all of the technical fundamentals are in place. Like we discussed earlier, is the page crawlable? Throw it into Search Console and see if Google can actually see that page. But in terms of rewriting, just make sure you tick all the right boxes. Does it have an H1 tag? Does it have alt text on its images? Just make sure it's literally a list of things that you just need to make sure that you tick through, and then make sure that Google can crawl it, and then you should be good to go.
It really goes back to this. I don't know if you guys will still see my screen, but it's those 14 points on this list. If you can do that for the particular page, that means that page is rank ready. Then you got to go up to the very top of the list and make sure that the site and that Drupal CMS is actually indexable. If Google can get to the page and your page looks something like this, then all that's left is the links and sort of an ongoing strategy to create ongoing awareness, the velocity you need. But once your foundations are there, you can tell the clients, I can't do more technically. Now you got to get your SEO marketing hat on and start marketing to that site and that page.
Okay, so Ben, I suppose Ben's question here, 1236, regarding SEO factors on-site, technical, and off-site. If you had limited capacity, which would you focus on first and why?
I think I can answer that one. So a lot of people focus on on-sites and they focus on link building, but they never get the fundamentals right. So just make sure that you've got, Google literally gives you a checklist. So just go through the checklist and make sure that you've ticked all the boxes.
And Rick, next week we'll look at those Google tools with their checklists.
Yes.
Just to add in, if there's something wrong with your base setup or your on-site isn't using the right keywords, you didn't bother doing any research, you can do links and all that marketing till you're blue in the face, and it's going to get you nowhere. Yeah. You have, like, if it had a gun to me, I had to choose one, it would be very hard. But only saying, like, you've been saying to only do the link building and the pushing work if you're pointing to a broken machine.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Look, there are a couple of other questions. I think what we'll try and do is, I can't promise that we'll get this right, but we'll try and answer those privately, to email those people with the answers to those questions. But Andre, Rick, thank you so much for your time again today. Apologies for the background noise. This is the world we live in at the moment, so I'm just going to go with it. But thanks, guys, and we're looking forward to part 3 next week. So everyone who has jumped in, thank you so much for your time and your attendance. We'll pick it up with Andre and Rick again next week, same time, same virtual place, and we look forward to it then. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone.